How can you design your Airbnbs like a pro? Jody Carmichael is on our podcast and YouTube channel today talking about just that. Hey everyone, welcome into the Fearless Investor Podcast. I'm Kyle Stanley. You're either checking us out on our podcast or our YouTube channel. Please drop a comment or leave a review. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do. And also, please check out Price Labs. If you have not checked out Price Labs yet, I can tell you right now, it is the best option out there for dynamic pricing. What's dynamic pricing? Well, it's just basically if you've ever gone and tried to book a hotel or even airline, what do you see? You see one day it's one price, the next day it's another price. If you go and try to book on a Saturday or book on a Tuesday, it's completely different prices. And have you ever wondered why they do that? Well, that's what dynamic pricing is. It's just basically supply and demand. So if you're not using a dynamic pricing tool like Price Labs, then you're already missing out on tons of income, and you're probably spending way more time on your pricing and your calendar management than you should be. Price Labs is going to automate your pricing, automate your calendar management, and it's going to do it in a way that's going to make you a lot more money because it's going to gauge all the supply and demand. Think about that day that maybe you had no idea was in high demand, and you look back on it, you're like, oh my gosh, it was a festival that weekend. I had no idea. Price Labs is 10 steps ahead of you on that. They're pricing it out already because they know that, because they see other places getting booked, which means they're in high demand and your prices are going to go up. So go check it out. How do you check it out? It's going to be on our show notes, which is www.fearlesskyle.com/Jody Carmichael. Jody is Jody, Carmichael, exactly like it sounds, car and then Michael. And you can also, if you're on the YouTube channel, just click on the link down below and you will get the free 30-day trial from Price Labs along with the tutorial from their team. And you're off and running. I'm telling you, it's the best product out there. I've used other ones. Price Labs is far and above the best. So go check that out. For right now, though, we're going to talk with Jody Carmichael. She was on our Facebook page about 2 weeks ago. If you're watching this on the day that we released this was March of 2022. And I'll just tell you this, she goes through a ton of stuff that she's sharing her screen. So if you're watching or listening on the podcast right now, you're going to want to go to the YouTube channel so that you can watch this and see what she's talking about. Jody has set up over 60 Airbnbs, and she is co-hosting for most of those owners, and she owns a little bit as well. But I think that this is going to be really highly educational for you. If whether you know interior design or not, this is going to be a really helpful podcast to listen to. So let's check it out with Jody Carmichael. Hey everyone, welcome in. And we've got Jody Carmichael with us. If you're watching live here on Airbnb Masterminds, please comment, ask your questions. Jody is a pro when it comes to interior design. She's set up, oh man, in the 40s, 50s, 60s for Airbnbs. And so she knows what in the world she's doing. So please start posting your questions and everything right now, all things interior design. But before we get into that side of it, I have to, we got to get to the story because Jody's got a really, really cool one. And I can't wait for you guys to all hear it. But Jody, welcome in from Wilmington, North Carolina. I appreciate you jumping on here.
Thank you so much, Kyle. I've been looking forward to this. I know we've talked about it for a while.
Yeah, gosh, we probably connected it through the Facebook group, over a year ago at this point. So nice to see us finally falling through here. And I, it's so cool to me, like people right under your nose that you just don't even like realize. Like Jody's got over 60 places. And when I asked her like, hey, so tell me a little bit more about, your portfolio, when she said over 60, I was like, wait, what? So that's pretty amazing, Jody, that what you've been able to do. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Before we do, what is that craziest, weirdest, wildest, best Airbnb story that you got for us?
Well, I had a hard time deciding because I do have a few. I've been doing this for about 6 years, but I like to say, once the worst thing has happened, then you can sort of like rest at ease because you already know how you're going to handle it. And we did have, that really bad guest that did everything that you sort of fear in the back of your mind.
Right.
So when the cleaners came in, TV was busted, nail polish, paint on tables, just everything like completely destroyed. And my cleaners called, there was drug paraphernalia. It's just like every bad thing that you sort of, I think when you first start Airbnb, I know the first night I had an Airbnb, I was just laying in bed like, oh my gosh, are they stealing my stuff right now? What's happening? You have all these fears. And this was sort of like walking into the worst nightmare. And luckily, the parents had rented the room for basically a teenager that was mentally ill. And I don't know why they would have done that, but there was a whole story to it, and they paid for the damages and everything was taken care of. So there was a happy ending for that particular owner as far as getting it resolved. But yeah, we have seen like the worst of the worst as far as the damages and what you can walk into that's your worst nightmare.
And
but
you're still a host, and you've
still a host. I didn't run away from that. Neither did the other owners that had the property. So
still add more properties, still doing it, and being very successful with it too. So let's jump into that. And by the way, Tashiana just jumped on. She said, hello, everyone. What's up, Tashiana? Yeah, again, guys, comment, share your questions. If something hits home, love it, like it. We'd love to have some participation on this. So what I want everyone to hear right now is Jody's story, because like in my mind, Jody, your story, if you can do it, then really no one else has any excuses. So can you just kind of rewind and tell us from the get-go how you got started in Airbnb and all the struggles along the way?
Sure, absolutely. So I learned about Airbnb back in 2012, and it wasn't until like 2016, my husband and I were getting ready to renovate our house, and we were going to add a room and a bathroom. And we were like, you know what, we have guests like twice a year. What if instead we bought a condo, and then eventually we would move into that while we renovated and then Airbnb it later. So that was the plan. About 2 months after moving in, I got sick with chronic Lyme disease and went from running 2 businesses to being almost completely debilitated within 6 weeks. So I could barely walk, had about 30 symptoms. It was the worst thing you could possibly imagine. Going to doctors, nobody knew what was wrong. So about 3 or 4 months of that and not working, we decided like the income was getting tight. We've got this renovation project happening, and it's just like time to get this Airbnb up and running because we needed the money. And so we moved in with my mother-in-law and started the Airbnb. About 3 weeks later, I found a treatment clinic up in Massachusetts. And so I was there for 3 months, living in a hotel, running my Airbnb completely remote, while in a bed in a hotel up in Massachusetts. So I had everything going wrong because at the time that I got sick, I had 2 businesses. One I had to shut down. The landlord of that was trying to sue me for the rest of the lease. Of course, I couldn't even work. And luckily I had a partner in my bakery. And so she took over running that while I was gone. But it was just, it was really a nightmare. But what a blessing the Airbnb was, because that really like was paying for my treatment, paying for what I needed during that time. And, you know, we had about an 8-month gap from when we moved into my mother-in-law's and we could finally get into our house. But, you know, we survived it, and here we are, you know, 6 years later, absolutely thriving and, you know, financially excellent and all those things that you want. So
yeah, I think there's some really important parts there that you know, I can tell you're moved on from it. But I mean, like, let's go back to that time when you said you were almost completely debilitated. How long was that? What was that like mentally, emotionally, spiritually, the whole thing?
Yeah, that started in October of 2016, and I didn't find the clinic until April of 2017. So that period from October to April was really horrific. I tell people now, like for me, that taught me empathy, especially for older people that maybe I didn't have before, because I was homebound. I really didn't have many friends at the time. You know, I had friends call me up and say, could you go to lunch? Can you go have a drink? Like, they really didn't understand, because a lot of people don't understand the illness and the disease. So they didn't really know how sick I was. And I couldn't, most of the time couldn't drive because I couldn't walk around the corner up the hill to my car. So I would just, you know, I would just sit at home. My husband was working and, you know, just try to tolerate getting through the day. The symptoms were so bad.
Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, what kind of mental mind state were you in during that entire time?
Well, I mean, I think the good thing about me in general is when I got sick, the only thing I knew about Lyme disease was I knew a girl from high school that had been sick for a while. And I just thought in my head, like, I'm not going to be sick forever with this. Like, you know, and as you start looking into the disease, I mean, that is a really common story. So in my head, I just was like, my story is going to be different. And I used to tell people that I was talking to who had the illness, because I did a lot of, just sharing my story with other people when they got sick. A lot of it's, you just have to have the right mindset and determination. And I think it's the same with like the Airbnb business. Like you just have to keep going, even when it's hard, even when sometimes you're like, am I ever going to get better? Is this going to get better? Am I going to get out of debt? Like whatever's going to happen, if you can just keep putting one foot in front of the other, then there is one day where I finally started to feel a little better. And it was just like a switch. I was like, okay, I've got this and I'm just going to keep going. So it was about 1.5 years though I was out of work.
Wow. And so you said 2016 in October is when it started. You didn't find somewhere to go until April 2017. At what point did you have your first listing for Airbnb? Was it in the midst of that?
March of 2017. So a month before I was in treatment was when we actually started renting. And I was, just at home in my mother-in-law's house. And then I found a treatment center to go to that was like a 90-day center. And I just went up there and managed the emails, managed the cleaner, all of that stuff remotely. So.
And at this point in March, you were still pretty much, getting out of bed was still nearly impossible.
Yeah, it was. I really didn't go back to work full time until about 1 year later. But in the interim of that, when I came back from treatment, I was probably about 75, 80% better. I was significantly better. So I was good enough that I wanted to do more. But interestingly, I worked the last month I was there at the doctor's office that I was being treated at. I like negotiated working some to pay for part of my treatment. So that's just who I am. I could see they needed help and I'm like, hey, I'm like so bored up here because I'm like, can't work anymore. And so we did that. But anyway, but one of the things that was happening is I would get massive headaches just trying to do too much, that sort of thing. So I really just had to go slow. But I signed up, once I got back, I knew I wasn't going back to the baking world. So I signed up to be a co-host on Airbnb. And then that's when I started slowly. It took about 6 months to really start picking up, but slowly picking up a property here and there.
Wow. Okay. And so tell me about setting up your first property though, while you're going through all that. What was that like?
There's a lot of stress and a lot of just, trying to get things done because we had just renovated it before I got sick. So we had actually gone through a renovation process. And then the rest of it was just buying some accessories and setup. But yeah, it was all very exhausting. And I was even cleaning my unit a lot myself just to get the extra money. Like once I got back from treatment, I was the cleaner. So I was cleaning the unit, every turnover. Because that extra $45, $50, whatever, like meant a lot to me at that time. And also I had the time to do it. And I think also made me better as things went on because I can relate to my cleaners. And I also know when, okay, look, it doesn't take you that long. I've done this before. So, I think when you've done all the jobs, it always helps in any business.
Wow. Yeah. That's got to be just, when you go through, just kind of like what you said in the beginning there, when you've gone through the worst, nothing else is really that difficult. And
nothing matters that much.
yeah. So, you experienced that with that bad Airbnb guest, but in terms of your own personal health, like I got to imagine that going through that has just been like, all right, life is easy.
Felt like I have lost everything. From like my independence, my finances, it just literally, my career, it felt like literally everything has been taken away. And, once you've gone through that in life, it's sort of like the fear is definitely gone to do anything new. And I've never been too fearful of taking risks or, doing business, opening a business or whatever, but you definitely lose a lot of fears when you're like, okay, I've conquered that. I can pretty much do anything. So
That's awesome. And that, no surprise to me, like a lot of people who are successful business owners or like yourself, they've gone through some serious things in their lives to be able to say like, all right, the rest is easy. So what has been, building an Airbnb business been like for you? What have been the fears, the struggles when you first started, and how you've been able to overcome those to be, managing over 50 units that you don't own and owning, close to 10 over that 60 mark is just, that's no small feat.
Yeah, it's one of those things that a lot of people are shocked. Like I'm right now in the process of putting a website up. I don't currently have my own website,
Oh,
which
wow.
a lot of people are shocked by. But there's been no advertising, no looking. Everyone that's come to me has been word of mouth. So, that's been great. And I started early enough that was pretty easy. I mean, the building that I had my first condo in is not huge, but I'd say there's probably 30 or 40 units, maybe not even quite that many, but we managed 7 at this point, just from like someone talking to my cleaner, and someone stopped me one day. They're like, "Are you the cleaner here? Because we're buying this unit." And so, we meet a ton of people just being out doing the job.
Cool.
And I think if you're open to talking to people, like, friendly, I mean, that's been how we've gotten a lot of the business, was just the neighbor. I mean, I have a couple streets that I had 2 houses side by side, because I started with one and then the other. So there's a lot
Nice.
of close proximity, because a lot, and that just has to do with being friendly with people and asking questions.
So the main way that you've built your co-hosting business, and for those of you that are tuning in and you're like, what's a co-hosting business? It's essentially just managing the day-to-day for an owner. And you get paid a percentage based on the gross amount. So the main way that you've built it sounds like it's just been being out there, talking to people, and word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Ever spend $1 on marketing?
Not $1.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Not $1, yeah. And I mean, once we have the website up, we'll probably do more, but it's grown at a pace that I could handle. That's been really important. This last year has gone a little past that, because it's gone so fast in the last year. But I've hired more people, and we're getting caught up, so it's all good.
Awesome. So before we get into your design and your passion for that, I do think I have one other question just in regards to the struggle, because we're always talking about Airbnb and how great of a business it is and how amazing you can, you don't even have to own a property and you can start making money right away. But when we paint this picture too, sometimes people forget that it still is owning a business, starting a business, and there are struggles to be had. So what has been, for you, maybe the one or two like things that you would say, hey, if you're looking to start this business right now, be ready to, I heard someone say, eat crap sandwiches the other day. Like, if you're not willing to eat crap sandwiches, then you're not ready to start a business. But I'm just wondering, something like that, what's been maybe that one or two just major struggles that you think everyone should be ready for if they're serious about doing this business?
Well, I think, like you said, it definitely is a business. You can do everything right, and someone's still going to give you a bad review, or they're going to, criticize something about the unit that you don't think is fair. I mean, just move on. I mean, don't be. And I think, because I had the bakery before, I owned a bakery for 7 years. And so, you have online reviews and things like that. I mean, I pretty much just didn't let any of that kind of stuff in my brain, because I knew what I was about and what I was doing, what I was setting up for guests. And just because, somebody didn't like it or was having a bad day and took it out on me, which, is sometimes what's really happening when a guest is unhappy. And then sometimes things will just go bad. And no matter what you try to do to make it right, the faucet breaks or whatever. I mean, things are always going to be happening. It's just handling it as quickly and kindly with a guest as you can, and moving on to the next thing, I think is what's important. I mean, there's going to be challenges. I have a great one. We had in my unit, we had a new roof put on our building after one of the hurricanes, and the roofers drilled into the sprinkler system and flooded my unit the weekend before July 4th.
Oh no.
You can imagine. I have a Riverview unit, fireworks on the river. Like, we had to cancel somebody 2 days before July 4th. And we were shut down for 5 weeks of summer. So that was, just one of those things that things are going to happen.
You couldn't just pass that off as like, it's another river. You get 2 rivers now.
Yeah. It's like, good luck finding somewhere to stay 2 days before July 4th. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. Okay. Well, I love that. And I think it's important for people to know there's definitely cons of every business, right? So being mentally tough is the biggest thing. And, one of my students just recently, like, they already started a setup, and then, they were midway through a setup and the owner canceled the contract, and it was like, oh man, like, you got to be mentally tough to just jump back on the horse and get ready for the next one, especially early on in a business.
Yeah. And I've had units that, you do all the work to set up for the owner that I co-hosted for. And then 2 months later, they're like, oh, we decided to sell. And, you've done all this work. And that was in the early days. And I didn't necessarily have a formal contract. So it was just like, oh, wow, I just put a lot of time into something that, so, you learn from your mistakes and you just keep going and it keeps getting better. So
that's awesome.
I don't
so
have
Jody,
anything too much negative to say because it's been mostly good experiences for me.
Good. I love it. So Jody, I want to transition now to the topic that we have, which is furnishing an Airbnb like a pro, and you are a pro at this. By the way, no educational experience in interior design.
Correct.
But you have had some incredible success with doing it, and that just goes to show you don't have to necessarily go to school for something to be good at it. But I would like to just kind of let you have the floor of what is the big thing about interior design, of why you love it so much, and how you can help people to do their own interior design in their houses.
Absolutely. Well, I think for me, starting an Airbnb, like I was really excited to offer a guest something that I felt like wasn't available in the area at the time. And that was like a boutique hotel kind of experience. And I think number one is just knowing who your ideal client is and who you're targeting to stay in your house. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was couples. I don't have a sleeper sofa. That was a 1-bedroom condo with a river view. I didn't do a sleeper sofa. I specifically only did the bed in the bedroom because I did not want kids or pets or extra people coming in. I wanted this to be a special experience. And so, we did things like the upholstered headboard and like luxurious towels and a nice mattress and, throw blankets and extra stuff in the, just all the things that make it feel special, a record player. Just tried to make it a place that would be really fun. We stocked it with a lot of, at the time, which I know wouldn't mean much now, but DVDs, just because we had a ton of movies. So it's like, if you're stuck in here, there's going to be stuff to do. And there's a beautiful view and there's a balcony so you can sit out and drink wine. So really nice coffee grinder, coffee maker. Like I was just looking for a place that was just really extra special for predominantly couples. And we did great from the beginning, but I knew who I was targeting and I knew who I was decorating for. And I think those two things kind of go hand in hand when you're setting up an Airbnb. So that's what I would say, first of all, is kind of have a plan for the space in the house or the condo, whatever it is. Obviously, if you have a beach house with 5 bedrooms, you've got a completely different target market and a completely different shopping list, because you're not going to be doing like a high-end leather sofa and, right, and a suede chair or anything like that. You're going to be wanting things that are water friendly. I had a unit that I even did an outdoor sofa inside because of the fabric, and just because we were so close to the ocean, it was something we'd stayed in. And get ideas from places you stay. We had stayed in an Airbnb in Costa Rica, and all the indoor furniture was actually like outdoor furniture, but it was beautiful. And it was like, oh, this is so smart, because you get in from the pool, and you want to think people aren't going to sit in a wet bathing suit on your sofa, but it happens. So I thought that was a great little idea that we took and did in a beach house. But one of the things that I did, if you want me to go ahead and share,
go for it.
I thought it would be better than trying to like explain things, to actually bring some photographs of listings that I have or have walked into that owner said, we're ready to photograph, we're ready to list. So I could give you some good and bad examples of Airbnb design in my opinion. And every designer is different, so you don't have to agree with me, but I'll show you what I've got.
I can't wait to see them.
All right, let me see if I can. Sorry for the extra stuff.
Oh, you're good.
I think I've got us right here. Oops, let me move that so I can actually get it on screen. All right. Can you see that all right?
I can, yeah.
Okay. So for the first one, this is an owner asked me to come and photograph her listing. It was a 2-bedroom condo. This is guest ready in her opinion.
Right.
For me, like, and this is what happens a lot. People are like, oh, I have a room and I want to make some extra money. And that's great. I mean, you can absolutely make extra money in this room on Airbnb, but you're not going to make top dollar. Right. And I think what everybody wants, I think if you have space and you've invested in a property, like you want to make top dollar as much as possible. So from a design perspective, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, the things to me that are wrong with the space.
Let's do it.
So we'll start with just the bare walls. It's not very inviting. It's not very welcoming. This is probably something that was there already, but it's definitely oversized and it's up against a window and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So for me, this is something I would definitely add window treatments, add some artwork. The bed is just, really, really plain Jane. There's no toss pillows. There's no rug on the floor. So there's really just nothing that's pulling me into this room when you've got, in most places, 300 plus Airbnbs that somebody can book, unless you're only wanting to make $30 to $50 a night. You're not going to get the kind of guest or the kind of money that you actually want. And these are little things to spend money on, but from the design perspective, I think one of the first things is just the scale and proportion, which is putting furniture that's too big in places that are just not appropriate. And there's a closet in this room, so you really don't even need this piece for somebody that's coming to stay for just a couple nights. You don't need a whole armoire. So I'm going to go to the next one. So here's another example. This is an example of a much better design space. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about is, especially with accessories and funky spaces, like this was a really funky wall to sort of work with.
Right.
And so one of the things that really makes it work well by doing, I would assume most people would probably stick a mirror on top of this dresser or something, but playing with accessories that kind of mimic the lines of, the diagonal line of the room really works well. So that's an example of something that.
So this was one that you did furnish, or was this one that?
This is one that I did furnish. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, this is one that I did furnish. And so this one, and it's probably kind of all over the map because I just threw a bunch of pictures together from my phone a little while ago. But I tried to pick things that I could just sort of explain examples. Like when you're accessorizing a room, odd numbers work well, groupings work well. So, groupings of small items. Again, playing with the diagonal line and actually making the accessories follow that just makes that really pleasing to look at. And a lot of times you'll walk in a room and you're not going to know. I think most people necessarily, they can't visualize what something looks like when they're decorating, and they don't always know what's wrong with the room when they walk in, but you walk in and know that something doesn't feel right. Something feels off, something's out of balance. So
quick question. You mentioned odd numbers. What did you say about odd numbers?
So like, if you're doing groupings, like groups of 3 work really well for accessories. Sorry.
Got it.
Yeah. So like I've got, 3 little accessories here. That works better than, sometimes people will take a theme and they'll pepper that item. Like I had an owner I used to manage for, and she liked elephants, and there was elephants all over the place, but just randomly. Like it's better, like group things together, make it make sense. And I'll talk about that a little more in some of the other photos that I brought. This is another condo. This is a new listing. And I will say, so this is one I'm going to say good and bad things about. So essentially, I thought the owners did a really great job with the space. To be honest, they have all of the fundamental elements that you would be looking for in a good Airbnb, which is you've got, a nice seating grouping. You've got a rug that is appropriate for the space. And this is probably one of my top pet peeves. A lot of people do a coffee table rug, and that's essentially where the rug is just barely bigger than the coffee table. And it looks like you just have a coffee table sitting on a rug versus a rug that actually brings the grouping together. So it makes it feel like, yes, this is a seating grouping that's supposed to be together versus, and you actually have a place to walk on that's soft. It's all of those things. The owner did a great job. There's lots of lighting options in the room, which I think is important. She's got task lighting. We've got nice overhead recess lighting. What I didn't like, or what I would change, if anything, for me, this is a little bit too high. It doesn't really feel like it goes with the sofa so much. It's like closer to the ceiling than it is to the sofa. So it's almost like it's floating a little too high up. And I feel like that's another thing that happens a lot, is it's just the placement of the items. They need to make sense with what they go with. So you don't want something like way out here in left field, or like too high or too close to the ceiling. A lot of times I see things that should be sort of eye level, but it also should sort of make sense with the other pieces around it. So it's not,
So it's so funny that you mentioned that, because, and this is just a perfect example of why I outsource interior design to my fiance, because she notices stuff like that. And I'm like, it's too high. I can't see that. What do you mean? What do you mean the rug is too small? And those are just the things, like, one of the things that now I can say is when I look at listings and compare listings, I can like literally say, oh yeah, this one was definitely furnished by a guy, because
You can
most of
usually,
us guys just don't have, I mean, not all of us, but most of us guys just don't have that eye for interior design.
yeah.
And this is, yeah, no, I like this. So I like the contrasting colors as well. Can you talk about just like the pops of colors and what your goal is there?
Yeah, and this one, I didn't design this one. This was one of my
Oh,
owners.
okay.
They pulled colors from the rug, and yeah, I like very much that. And you could always go two different ways. With a rug like this, you could go with softer colors around it, or you can pull stronger colors like they did. I mean, there's always a lot of different things you can do with design. One of the other things they did that was good, but I would have done slightly different, is I love greenery and plants in a room, and it's almost always going to be artificial because my
Right.
cleaners will not necessarily water those, and I don't want to put extra work on them. And then it always stays pristine and nice. And they did some nice greenery here, but they just don't have it anywhere else. And it's all, so you kind of have all of it lumped in one place, where I would have liked to saw a little bit over, a little bit here,
Right.
maybe some on the coffee table. So you know, spread out
Yeah,
the the appearance of live plants, even if they're not.
absolutely.
um, so that's another just little tip.
Cool.
And this one was mostly good for me. This is the same condo. Again, I think this is where somebody's being thoughtful to the space. They have, curtains on the window. They have items on the wall. It feels like somebody lives there.
Mhm.
This was a little too thin for me. I like to see like a big giant extra blanket along the bottom
Okay.
personally. And then my other thing, this is another one of my
That doesn't
personal
seem like it fits.
yeah, my personal pet peeves is curtains that do not come to the floor, but they come
Got it.
2 inches above, 5 inches above. To me, that's a big no, because one of the reasons that you're doing drapery panels is to really play with the length and the height of the room. And so, it's like wearing um,
High water
high
pants.
high water pants.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're not getting it. So curtains to me should definitely come to the floor, not dragging, because in an Airbnb, your cleaners are going to hate you for that. You don't want them puddling all over the floor. And I've had owners with white curtains pooling
Ooh,
all over the floor, and I just thought, no, that's a
no,
terrible idea.
no.
But so that's another thing that I would fix in that room. Um, and so some of these are really great examples and beautiful rooms, but I'm just going to nitpick because I really want to get into some of the design details. This is overall a really beautiful room. Um, this is sort of an example of the coffee table rug. It's
Right.
just a little bit small. It's more narrow than the sofa. So for me, something a little bit bigger would have worked better there. But I think a lot of times too, when people are on a budget, they're like, oh, this one costs less. It's a little bit smaller. It'll be fine. But, um, obviously obviously it works, but it would be better to make that a little bigger. And again, we've got a really big gap between the sofa and this mirror,
Okay.
which I don't necessarily like that either. So
Now,
otherwise,
what about the island right there? Would you put some sort of decor on that?
when you're photographing for a listing, yeah, I think you could definitely, like, a lot of people do the table setup and the wine glasses and things like that. And I think photographing for a listing, like, that's really great. I don't know that I would put another accessory there. There's a lot going on here already. But it is sometimes you want a little bit of this like rest in the eyes. So I don't think you necessarily have to. I think this would be nice to, for Airbnb photographing, maybe do a table setup. Would have been pretty. Maybe something sort of low. But it's not that huge of an island. So I don't necessarily like to put things out that a guest is going to have to move. So I also think about the functionality of how a guest is going to be moving
Cool.
through the space. And if every time they sit down, they have to move things around, I don't necessarily like that.
Yeah. Can we talk about that for a quick second? I mean, I'm always like functionality, and then when it comes to interior design, a lot of it is just design, but there's got to be a balance there, right?
There has to be. I mean, you have to really think about who's living in your space and how they're going to live in your space, and how they're going to move about the space. So all of that I think is really important to just make sure that they have a good experience.
Mm-hmm.
So putting too many things out, too much is not always better, right? So this next one I'm going to show you is in the same building. It's right next door. And just to give you a contrast on, what something in the same building can look like sometimes. For me, this is a whole lot of seafoam going on.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the
Okay.
ceiling, it's the walls, it's the furniture. um, it's a whole lot of too much of one color. Somebody liked the beach and they wanted you to know it when you walked in. Um, so also just remember to use color. Color is really important. It can be very overwhelming if used incorrectly, and this is an example of just taking an idea a little too far. Here's another example too of just when it comes to accessorizing, like these are really too big for this little table.
Yeah.
Things like that. Consider the size of, number one, the room when you're looking at upholstery pieces, rug sizes, and then when you're looking at accessories, you look at your end tables and things, coffee tables, the same way. Consider what size you have to work with, and you don't want to absolutely fill up the entire space typically.
I also look at that TV and think, man, that should be a much bigger TV. It should be mounted on the wall.
Yeah, this whole thing is just, yeah, we need like a nice big piece of furniture. This is completely pointless.
Right.
That chair doesn't serve a purpose. I'm sure no one has ever sat in it and it doesn't match anything. So, yeah. And given that she has all of the upholstery in the blues, like just repainting this a totally different color would completely change that little TV setup, and you would have a brand new room by just moving around a few accessories after that.
Yeah. Awesome. Sure. So Jody, and just anyone watching right now, we're getting ready to get to some Q&A. So please make sure to post your questions so we can start getting those sent over to Jody. And I just have a few other questions here before we do kind of open that up. Where are some of your go-to places for making these purchases?
I have a long list at this point of where I go. What I try to avoid is the overstock Wayfair trap that a lot of people get into, of like going to Overstock or Wayfair or Amazon because they're inexpensive and they'll furnish the whole place out of that. And I can tell walking to Airbnbs half the time where people have purchased things, I think at this point, because I've seen the sun's like moving right now. I'm gonna slide over.
You're good.
Right into my face now. I love to secondhand shop as much as I can. There's two fabulous stores here in town that I frequent, and it depends on the day, but I have found what I like about that is a lot of times you can get quality wood furniture versus, particle board that you've got to go home and put together for, very low prices, sometimes even less than some of the cheaper furniture that's out there. And I really hate using the mass-produced commercial, particle board. You have to screw all the pieces together. Not to say I don't. There's a place and a time, but I definitely try not to furnish any one place from one brand. You want to look like you've found pieces from different places, and you want to kind of mix it up. It makes it more interesting. It gives it more character. It makes it feel more like a place that is someone's home versus a really low quality hotel.
Yeah. Actually. Yeah. And that's the great thing about this business too, is, it's an opportunity to do things a lot of different ways. We actually do encourage our in-house interior design to get as much on Amazon because we know it's going to be fast. We know, different variety of all this stuff.
I get it on there, but I try not to, when it comes to furniture, I try to pull some of those pieces that are just, you're not going to see in 60 other Airbnbs. You know what I mean? Yeah. And the other thing I want to say too, is, you're probably, if you're just starting, you're not going to be able to start off with the most expensive thing or everything that you absolutely want. And I did want to point that out because when I started my first Airbnb, we had like a really nice sofa, a really nice mattress and bed and all of that. But I didn't have any artwork behind the sofa. I didn't have a rug in the hallway, which I really wanted. Like there were a lot of pieces missing that I slowly filled in as I started making money. So don't feel like because you don't have everything just right and perfect that you can't get started, because, that's something that I'm like, we've got the main pieces, we'll fill in the rest later. And some of that took 3 years to really get all the pieces that I wanted in the house.
Yeah. Well, I see Julie's got a question. I'm going to ask her question here in a second, but I do have a follow-up to that. You mentioned just, getting them all in different places. I think, or sorry, the part that you mentioned about people not going expensive. I think it's really one of those things that people can, their first one, overspend because they just want it to be so nice and so good. And so like, if you were going to go do a typical, call it 3-bedroom, 2-bath, let's call it 1,500 square feet. There's not a single piece of curtain treatments. There's no furniture there.
Yeah.
What would you typically set as a budget for yourself?
That's a hard question because I have a really bad habit of going too expensive. So I don't want to give that number because people are going to definitely be scared away. But I do, because I do have a tendency of like, there's a piece of me in it, and I always overspend. And this year has been especially good because I have an investor that we've bought some properties together, and he hates that stuff. So he's just like, do whatever you want. No worries on the budget, just going. So I've had fun this year with some of that, but you can do them inexpensively. My brother's first one I helped him with, he was on like a $6,000 budget, and we were able to get, pretty much everything in for that. And I think a lot of people say that's their typical budget. Mine's more like 20. So it's like, I always go a little too much.
Okay.
I'll be honest on that, but
have you created this as another form of income in your business, or is this okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from I think the second or third co-hosting job that I had, I offered the design service because I did work as a designer for 7 years. So I definitely have the background, and most of my owners are out of town. So it's really a win-win because they're like, oh, well, I'm in Washington, D.C. and I don't know how I'm going to get this place furnished. And I'm like, that's, I can help you. So that's kind of how it started. And then now it's something that when a new person calls me, I start talking about the design in the first conversation because I just think it's that important, because at the end of the day, we're all selling this tiny little photograph of our place. I mean, that's the first thing they click on. And if you can't get that, like a cohesive, well-balanced design that looks like a room that's full, people are going to scroll on. So
I completely agree. That first photo and the top 5 photos are huge. Well, we've got some good questions here that are popping in. So Julie says, thoughts on putting rugs down when pets are allowed?
I still put rugs down. Yeah, I do. I think the type of rug could be different. I mean, you have like jute rugs and woven rugs that you might get hair stuck in, or, most of my properties, I'm not allowing pets. I think we only have 3 that are all the time allowing pets, and they all have rugs.
Okay.
You just vacuum and keep going. Cause I think a room without a rug is just a little too sparse.
Yeah.
And you can go pretty inexpensive, and that's something that could be replaced pretty easily down the road if it needs to be because the dog's chewed it or whatever.
Yeah. Follow-up question on that for sure. I mean, we get these throw pillows, throw blankets, the rugs, and stuff happens. People, the rugs or the pillows and the blankets grow legs and they walk up out of the place. Right. The rugs get worn down. Mm-hmm. How important for you is it that those get replaced versus, hey, it's in the pictures, but it's really not a big deal. It doesn't really affect the guest stay. Like what?
That would be super important for me. Yeah. I mean, I don't have major items that walk off too often. I do think I have my cleaning team's pretty good about saying, hey, your toss pillow that was on this chair is all of a sudden missing. And I'll charge a guest if they've walked off with it and we know who did it, and we'll replace it. But otherwise, I think replacing throw pillows does happen, is one of the items that, gets worn down a little quicker. So those you're going to have to replace sometimes. And if I get something more fabulous, I would rephotograph it and put it up there for sure. Usually if I'm ever buying something new, I'm trying to upgrade it. So.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. Do you take your own photos or do you have a photographer?
What you've seen today are just ones on my phone that I just uploaded really quick. But yeah, for the most part, we try to get everything professionally photographed. Not all my listings are currently. Some people I said just don't even bother yet because I want, when we do the website, for all of them to be taken by the same photographer so that we kind of have the right lighting all the same and that kind of thing. So nice. Very cool.
Amandine asks, do you follow a must-have list for accessories? I'm a minimalist in my own home and I'm having trouble thinking about what's needed.
I'm a minimalist in my own home as well. So 100%, I don't go crazy. I think that you want to think about your main walls and your feature walls. You just really don't want everything to be completely bare, but you want to have some thoughtfully placed pieces of artwork. throw blankets, that's kind of one of the new things. Almost every unit I have has a basket full of a few throw blankets because it's just nice to have. If you get someone who's colder than the other person, there's always somebody looking for one. So that seems to just be a thoughtful thing to put out. A necessity, no, but is it thoughtful? Yes. And that's kind of if you're trying to cater to the guest a little bit, I think that makes sense. And a couple toss pillows on the sofa. Yeah, my first unit, I only had 2 pillows. You don't have to go crazy. But yeah, in a bed, I over pillow the bed, and I don't mean necessarily the decorative ones. I always have 4 sleeping pillows, and I usually have different firmnesses so that whatever you're comfortable sleeping in, you should be able to find one that works. And then at least 1 decorative pillow. You can, if you do 1, at least, it kind of ties it together.
Love it. Awesome. All right. Last question here from Mike. He says, do you recommend a firm bed or a soft bed?
I would say medium to firm more than soft. I think more people are not happy with a soft bed than with a firm bed. So I try to go on the medium firm side. So
I'll also say it doesn't matter which kind of bed you have. People they're either going to be like, this is the best bed ever. And then the next person's gonna be like, this is the worst bed ever. Yep. So there's no perfect bed for everyone, for sure.
There is no perfect. So if you can kind of get somewhere in the middle, but I don't have any that I've gotten like super soft, and I've never had, I don't have that many complaints on beds. So
cool. Yeah. Awesome. Jody, you also have a really amazing offer for everyone that's listening in right now. So can you share that really quick before we log off?
Yes, I can. So I do consulting. So this is something that if you wanted to have me take a look at your property, whether it's something you've been renting or something that you're getting ready to rent, go through the decision-making process of what you have left or what you might want to change, I'm happy to do that. Kyle, I sent you my link and I can't remember what it is because I just set that link up. So
that's okay.
I don't know if you have it, but you can schedule a 45-minute consult. I've marked it down to, what did I mark it down to?
I think
125?
125. Yeah, I think that's what
25 for 45 minutes. Yeah. So what I'll do is have you send me some stuff ahead of time, and then we'll do a nice 45-minute call and really go into a lot of detail about your specific property and what you might need help with.
So what I can do is I'll put that link on the comments and also in the title of this when this gets reposted. So if you guys are watching right now and you're like, I want that link, just wait patiently about 15 minutes here and I'll get it on the comments and in the title. And then if anyone is watching not live and we post this on YouTube a couple weeks later, it'll definitely be in the description and on the show notes too. So, and by the way, that's a stinking steal right there. So if you can get some expert advice for that price and get your Airbnb to look like what Jody's are, that I'd say that's a no-brainer. So Jody, any last words before we say bye to our audience?
No, I think just, focus on your guest and make something that you would want to stay in, and you should have happy customers. So
Jody Carmichael, thank you so much today for helping our audience to conquer the world of Airbnb. You're awesome.